Now let's determine if lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. Well, the first thing we need to do is look at the rules about parallel and perpendicular lines. And what we're doing here is we're looking at problems which are coplanar, lines which are coplanar. So in that case, let M1 be the slope of line number 1, and let M2 be the slope of line number 2. So in that case, we say that lines are parallel if M1 is equal to M2. In other words, if lines have the same slope, they're parallel. The formal definition is coplanar lines are parallel if they have the same slope. And if they're perpendicular, if M1 is equal to minus 1 over M2. In other words, it's the negative, if one slope is the negative reciprocal of the other. That's actually easier to see than to say. So let's say we have a line and it has a slope of 3/5. So a parallel line will also have a slope of 3/5, whereas the perpendicular line will be the negative reciprocal. So in that case, M2 will be, you simply take this fraction, flip it, so you get 5/3, and you make the sign the opposite. So this is positive, so that would be a negative. If you think about that, that's really what this means. We say that two lines are perpendicular if they're negative reciprocals. There's a really easy way to think about that. So let's, given a slope, and let's look at the slope of the parallel line, and let's look at the slope of a perpendicular line. So let's say you had a slope of 2. The slope of the parallel line will also be 2. The slope of the perpendicular line, remember that 2 is the same as 2 over 1. So you flip it so you get 1 over 2, but you change the sign. So the slope of the perpendicular line will be negative 1/2. Let's go back to slope. Let's say you had a slope of minus 3/4. The slope of the parallel line is also minus 3/4. And the slope of the perpendicular line, you flip the reciprocal. You flip the fraction, you take the reciprocal, so that's 4/3, and you change the sign. This is a negative, so that will be a positive. If you had a slope of minus 2, the parallel line will also be minus 2. The perpendicular line, 2 over 1 becomes 1 over 2. It's a negative, so it becomes a positive. If you have a slope of 4/7, the parallel line is 4/7. The perpendicular line, you flip the 4/7, so it's 7/4. Change the sign. This is a positive, so that would be a negative. And that's how you find out the slope of parallel and perpendicular lines. Let's say you're given two lines. (2x minus 3y is equal to 10). 4x, let's do 4x plus 2y is equal to 8. Determine if they're parallel, perpendicular, or neither. Here are the steps. Step number 1, find the slope of the two lines. Step number 2, apply your definitions, apply your rules. If these two lines have the same slope, you know they're parallel. If these two lines have two slopes that are negative reciprocals, you know they're perpendicular. If neither one is true, then you have lines which are neither parallel nor perpendicular. So your first step here, let's find the slope of the first line. You go 2x minus 3y is 10. Rewrite this, y equals mx plus b. So then that's minus 2x, that's minus 3y is minus 2x plus 10. Divide by minus 3. And you get y is equal to 2/3 x minus 10/3. So you have a slope of 2/3. The second step, 4x plus 2y is equal to 8. Subtract 4x and subtract 4x, and you get 2y is minus 4x plus 8. Then let's divide by 2, and you get y is equal to minus 2x plus 4. Slope number 2 is minus 2. Let's check to see if these are parallel. Are these two slopes the same? They're not, so that means they're not parallel. Let's see if one is the negative reciprocal of the other. 2/3, let's take the negative reciprocal. You'd flip it and get 3/2, and you change the sign, minus 3/2. Minus 3/2 is the negative reciprocal of 2/3. Is that the slope of the second line? It's not, so they're not perpendicular. If they're not parallel and not perpendicular, we say they're not parallel and not perpendicular. Let's do one more problem. Let's say you have a line y is equal to minus 3/4 x plus 2. Y is equal to 4/3 x minus 7. So the first step is to find the slope of the two lines. Sometimes you have to rewrite them, y equals mx plus b. In this case, they're that way. So the slope of this line is minus 3/4, and the slope of this line is 4/3. Are these the same slope? They're not, so they're not parallel. Let's see if one is the negative reciprocal of the other. So minus 3/4 is the first slope. Let's flip it 4/3 and change the sign. So it's a negative, so it becomes a positive. Is that the slope of the second line? It is, so we say these lines are perpendicular. So those are the steps of finding out if they're parallel or perpendicular. There's just two basic steps. First, you find the slopes, and then you apply the rules. And what are the rules? Same slope. Parallel. Negative reciprocal slopes. Then that means they're perpendicular. There's only one exception, and that's with vertical and horizontal lines, and that's what we're going to do in the next video. Well, there's also some more examples, but that's how you find if lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither.